I get your point, Nupur. I think he's live on his handle. Maybe we'll ask him to hang up there and join this live session. We should be able to resolve this in a minute or so. And thank you everyone for your patience. Just a moment, guys. So yeah, so Dr. Swapnil is here. I'll be adding him now. And thank you everyone for your patience. My apologies again for wasting.
Hi, Dr. Swapnil. Good to see you here. Everybody were excited to see you. I think due to some technical issues, we couldn't connect. Sorry, everyone.
Good. Just be a little louder. I'm not able to hear it properly.
Is it better now?
It's like.
Is it better?
Yeah, now it's better. Just be a little louder.
I will do that. I will do that. First of all, I thank everyone for joining this live session with us. This is an interesting session with Dr. Swapnil Mate. We will be talking about recovery during this lockdown session for athletes. So just quick introduction about myself. I am Nagraj Harsha. So I handle brand activation for Fast&Up and I head business development for Fast&Up. So I'm also an athlete. I have done 4 Ironman and I've also qualified for Boston Marathon. I still train regularly. So I do understand what it takes for an athlete to stay recovered, stay fit, keep consistently training. And the key is to stay fit forever, right? To give you a quick introduction about Dr. Swapnil Mate, he's one of the very well-known sports physio in the country. So he needs no introduction, but for our viewers, what I would like to tell is, if you see, he worked with various sports professional teams. Last year, he was with U Mumbai, which was pro kabaddi team, as an official sports physio for the team. If I have to take a bit of history about him, he traveled with Indian national shooting team during Rio Olympics and during London Olympics. Right. So while he was assisting the entire national contingent during Olympic time in Rio and London, he was also a personal physio for Gagan Narang and Vijay Kumar. Gagan Narang during that season he won bronze medal in shooting and Vijay Kumar won silver medal. Over to you, Swapnil. Our viewers are excited to have quick introduction about yourself before we jump onto the topic.
Cool. Thanks, Nagraj, for inviting me first and for such a lovely, positive introduction. Uh, well, most of the time during my tenure working with the national as well as international athletes, I often found that the recovery was the most neglected phase in the kind of rehabilitation. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
and that's the reason why we actually came up with this topic of creating awareness about the recovery process and its methods, and how to incorporate into your daily living or during your strenuous high serious bouts of exercises or during your rehabilitation goal. So today's talk or the interactive sessions what we are going to have would not just be introduction but would be supported or won't be my personal opinion on them but would be strongly supported by a good clinical research data and a statistical analysis. We face. So over to you, Nagraj.
Yeah, so maybe if we have to start off the topic, my very first question to you, I also ask you from a professional athlete perspective as well, how do they keep themselves fit during this entire lockdown? So first question to you is, athletes are highly trained machines. Can lack of endurance and strength training cause health problem to them during this lockdown period?
Uh, yeah, definitely. Like as you mentioned, like they are like highly trained machines, so they are aware about the professionalism and the competitiveness that which grows around in the entire international arena, and it's always important that keep yourself like fit and recover from time to time phase. And I would like to keep this kind of inactivity or physical inactivity what we are going through this pandemic period in like an umbrella terms, like what goes wrong when you're like physical inactive. So during my post-graduation studies in the London Metropolitan, we have done a research on physical inactivity on an so we've done a research on these elite athletes and taking into consideration the randomized controlled trials, and we looked into the physical inactivity, what could go wrong in the fitness parameters. Okay, so what we came across, like physical inactivity in kind of any form has too much of negative impact on the human body. Take into considerations like if you're inactive for too long, then you kind of get a little bit of heart conditions like developed get a high BP, then and heart attack, the metabolic disorders like obesity and a cancer can pop in. Also, even your type 2 diabetes may. Mental disorders like stress and high levels of bad cholesterol can pop in. Suddenly, then you can have a depression state. Neurologically, if you want to see, then you will have a stroke things coming out. Also, your immunity is compromised. So that's how, in general, if the physical inactivity is like kind of given up, all these parameters are kind of like suppressed. And when you talk about a sports athlete going physically inactive or a lack of endurance or strength training exercises, we found that 7 to 8 parameters has shown a progressively decline. I'll try
Mm-hmm.
to list this one by one, and then I would like you to like really focus on few of the parameters.
All
Like the
right.
first negative aspect what we found in this entire research paper was your aerobic parameter, like the aerobic
Mm-hmm.
endurance, reduces almost to like 30% during the physical inactivity of 2 weeks. Okay,
All
the
right.
second parameter is your anaerobic conditions, like your
Right.
speed and power, reduces to 25%. Your overall flexibility of the entire body reduces to 15%. Now, these are all I'm listing it down in the chronological order. Your agility workouts reduces to 20%. While you're physically inactive, your body fat percentage, okay,
Mm-hmm.
increased by about 50%, which will
Okay.
also reduce your muscle mass to 40%. Your hand-eye coordination skills reduces to 10%. and your functional training or the sport specific skills reduces to 10%. So
Right.
that's how more important is for an athletes, even in this pandemic period, to stay healthy, to stay fit, and to
Right.
recover properly from this period. As you know that we are all surrounded by such a negative pessimistic about this coronavirus, and you need a little bit of motivationals around. So physical activity in any kind of form would kind of elevate that mood around vicinity. Okay, so takeaway from this particular research is that you're highly compromised on your aerobic parameters, then your anaerobic parameters, and all your functional skills and sport specific skills. Okay, so now
Right.
when we go on to the next question, we'll kind to address what exercises we are going to supposed to do in this particular lockdown period so that these parameters are not that well
Right.
affected. Yeah, over to you,
Right.
Nagraj.
My next question to you, Dr. Swapnil, how quickly can active athletes can become inactive? Right? I have come across athletes saying if they don't train for 2 3 days, they say that I feel unfit. So now
Yeah,
we know that lockdown is getting prolonged. We have past 45 days of
45
lockdown.
days.
In your opinion, what do you think? How quickly the athletes can get inactive if they don't do any physical activity?
Yeah, so the reason why we chose that research paper and the research subject was that inactivity was measured for 2 weeks. Okay, for 2 weeks. So
Right.
psychologically, you might feel a little depressed or you find it a little unfit when you go through a phase of inactivity. Now, see, over the period of time, inactivity you can say is like if you're like seriously injured and when you're getting operated, that's a one kind of the forced immobilization that you need to do. That also
Right.
is a one kind of physical inactivity. Or you're
Right.
going through some rehabilitation goals for your aches and pains, that's also one kind of inactivity. Okay, or
Right.
if your physical state and mental state is not proper, even that is a physical inactivity. But you don't get
Absolutely.
psychologically you feel unfit, but over the period of time, the fitness parameters really drops down after 2 weeks. They don't suddenly drop down so soon. Psychologically, it's all about exercises and releasing a good hormones in the body, which you feel like little highly motivated and with a good mood. But yeah, definitely. But it has been proven and scientifically supported that it takes approximately 2 weeks to show a drastic change in your fitness parameters. Not before 2 weeks, because you have been conditioned so well during all this period that it
Mm-hmm.
won't like suddenly crash like a stock market. So
Absolutely, I
over the
agree
period
with
of
you.
2 weeks, yeah.
Right. So now the another question I have in my mind is, which I think as an athlete, it's very important to know. Let's say if you're inactive, so suddenly you feel that you're losing out fitness. So, but then you start increasing your weight. The weight keeps going up, right?
Yeah.
So, but also I have come across people saying taking rest is absolutely okay. That helps you in quick recovery. How do you find that correlation between inactivity and recovery? And weight
Inactivity
management.
and okay.
Inactivity, does inactivity helps in recovery, or will it lead to weight gain, or how one athlete have to balance this aspects?
Yeah. So see, physical inactivity, as we mentioned, is dangerous for sports athletes for a long period of time. Even like earlier when we were in like in say in 1900 years, like the physical activity was not that restricted. Over the period of time, as the medical advances grew, earlier for the recovery for ACL rehabilitation, it would take approximately 6 to 7 months for the players to come back to the field. Now with the
Right.
recent advanced techniques, it took almost about like 3 months. The reason
Okay.
why we are cutting down this time is to not let this fitness parameters affect your performance.
Okay.
Okay, and that's the reason why physical inactivity is kind of dangerous to your health. The
Right.
protocol of recovery and rehabilitation has also been changed over the period of time. As we know
Right.
earlier, the protocol for sports injuries was just restricted to rise. That was
Right.
rest, ice, compression, and elevation. And then it
Mm-hmm.
kind of progressed to PRICE, that's protection, rest, ice, compression, and elevation. And now
Right.
the new terminology which has come up is a police. The P stands
Police.
for protection, yeah. OL stands for optimum loading. That
Mm-hmm.
means you have to keep loading your connective tissues. if you keep physically inactive, all these connective tissues like decreases their performance. Take muscle, ligaments, fascia, skin for that sense. And that's the reason why right now in this lockdown period, because we are not having access to the grounds, the sporting arenas, what well you can utilize in this today's time is to do some kind of physical activity at home. And the reason what I'm going to talk about is like do activity, but it should not be too much of overload or overtraining at this moment of ours. What are we going to concentrate in this particular lockdown period is to train with the proper rest and recovery.
Okay.
So I have made quick observational skill and came across the three parameters or three form of exercises that is must to go with this lockdown period. The first thing is the nutrition. Okay, many
Okay.
people has been asking about the nutrition aspect as well. It's first
Absolutely.
important thing is to for you to be healthy in such circumstances. Okay, that's
Mm-hmm.
why. And if you say your next question was about the weight control or weight gain, for any
Right.
nutritional or the strength training, if you ask, and based upon the recent research which we had, it is a ratio of 60 to 40%. Okay, I
Okay.
would give 60% weightage to the nutrition aspect because that's how your calorie comes inside the body, and what you do output in the form of next 40% is divided into two categories, which I would give
Okay.
weightage of 30% to cardio and
Mm-hmm.
10% to the resistance or weight training. Okay,
Okay.
so 60% should be emphasized on what exactly you eat, and that
Right.
60% should be for any athletes in any
Mm-hmm.
gender or any age group would be a good amount of protein, less saturated fats, and less of
Okay.
the simple or complex carbs.
Right.
The next thing is the cardio exercises. During
Mm-hmm.
this lockdown period, what you can utilize is the 30%. Now, for
Right.
any weight loss, when you want the fat to come into picture, your
Mm-hmm.
any kind of endurance activity should be beyond 60 minutes. That is where
Right.
your fats actually comes into your process of metabolism.
Mm-hmm.
So at present, what in a lockdown period, what you can do is like find your stairs workout. You can go for a brisk walking inside the house. You can do a standing jog. You can jump. You can hop. You can do a skipping. You can use stairs as a form of a cardio exercises. You can do plyometrics with the help of the stools or the tables which you have. You can, if you have a big, huge terrace, then you can just keep cones, or if you don't have cones, you can just use a glass or any object as a marker, and you do some agility drills around it. So such kind of cardio exercises are important, but make sure for your weight loss program that activity incorporating warm up and a proper cool down should be
Mm-hmm.
approximately for 60 to 90 minutes. 60 would be a
60 to
minimum.
90 minutes. That's
Yeah.
what you recommend. Okay.
Yeah, and then obviously, and that too, I'm saying in this lockdown period, you need not need to work out for all 7 days.
Okay.
According
That's
to the
interesting.
records and according to the fascia research, the evidence shows that if you want to
Mm-hmm.
stay fit and injury free, you have to
Mm-hmm.
just work out for 4 days a week, or max
4 days
5 days
a
if
week.
it, yeah, 4 to 5 days a week, where
Is it
for
is it for beginners or for all
for
level of
everyone. If
for
in
everyone?
case if you want to be injury free, okay,
Mm-hmm.
this protocol is only for if you want to take fitness
Mm-hmm.
without being injury free. So this
Okay.
has been divided into like a 1 day cardio, 1 day strength training,
Okay.
and this has to be a gap of like 24 hours in between the two sessions. Then you
Okay.
will be focusing more on the yoga and stretching because you need that flexibility around your muscle fibers.
Mm-hmm.
Second thing, what you need to do is a rest. Now, rest doesn't mean physically inactive. You need to do rest in the form of going for an ice bath, ice immersion technique right now, do a soft tissue release, a fascia release, or do a kind of a deep tissue massage, self-release techniques, so that you recover
Right.
from that previous bout of strenuous exercises. And the
Right.
last thing, which is most important, which has come up with this new advanced thing, is called as a fascia stretch. Like entire of
Fascias.
your, yeah, fascia stretch. The reason why I'm kind of enlightening this particular topic is most of the people are unaware about it. As long as we have learned fitness, we were more focused on heart as a system and the muscle as a system. But what
Absolutely.
embeds everything in that is the fascia. And the
Okay.
reason why it's more important, because this is a structure which helps in you to generate power, to generate strength, to generate flexibility, which helps you in the long term. Also,
Mm-hmm.
one myth was like when you do a warm up, when you
Mm-hmm.
stretch, you're stretching the muscle. But one thing I would like to know is like we cannot stretch a muscle. What we stretch instead is the fascia which is covering over that particular muscle or the muscle fibers. And the
So you're
reason why
saying when
we
you stretch, you're stretching the fascia, you're not
fascia
stretching the
and
muscle.
not the
So
muscle,
which is
it's
not good.
like it's not possible only to stretch a muscle. What you're
Okay.
stretching instead is the fascia which is covering along that muscle fibers. And this
That's
is with
interesting.
the new research which has come up. It's right now a very new and very nascent topic to talk on, and that was they have suggested. Like when you see about warm up, what you warm up is not your muscles or the joints. You warm up this fascia because this fascia has kind of viscoelastic properties. And what you
Okay.
said about elasticity is not just limited to your muscle, but it's limited to
Right.
your fascia. So yeah, the
Right.
protocol would be like 4 to 5 days of workout with a good
Mm-hmm.
24 hours gap between the muscle group you're working on,
Okay.
and proper rest in the form of any release techniques or stretching, or preferably going on to do a dynamic stretches, and
Right.
yoga in any form. Like most famous would be the fascia yoga, going ahead, and a good nutrition. So focus
Right.
more on the nutrition at this period. So the second would be your cardio exercises should be more than 60 to 90 minutes depending upon your endurance, and then focus more on the resistance training. Now resistance training, you can use any of your substitutes, like you can take a big trekking bag and fill up with
Mm-hmm.
grains if you don't have a dumbbells in your place,
Right.
and you can do squats and lunges with that just being on the top of your shoulder. Then you can
Right.
use like empty cylinders or the fill up cylinders of 20-liter of Bisleri bottles, and you can just the main thing what you can do, if you have a long stick, you can also do a stick mobility exercises at home.
Okay.
If you have a TheraBand, then it's a good, preferably for an athletes, go ahead with the gray color TheraBands, which would be a better effective to maintaining that same strength. So like
Right.
that.
So I think
Yeah,
it's a
over to
great
you.
insight. You're giving a lot of importance to nutrition and also making sure athletes keep working on their cardiovascular
Yeah,
strength
this is the main
through
protocol.
cardio workout.
Yeah, just to
So you
remain
spoke
injury
about
free.
fascia stretch. Yeah. So you spoke about fascia stretch and you spoke about the recovery aspect, which is pretty interesting. So I have a couple of questions here from fascia stretch point of view.
Yeah.
So what is fascia stretch exactly? Is it static warm up? Is static warm up a fascia stretch?
No,
Is
no,
the
no.
question.
Fascia stretch. Fascia stretch is basically a dynamic form of a stretch. Okay,
Okay.
the stretches are usually similar to what you do to the muscle, but you
Mm-hmm.
kind of give an extra length to that particular structure. So if like
Okay.
if I say that this is the range of the muscle to get stretched, when you do a fascia stretch, the length increases this
The
much.
extra stretch. Got it.
Extra stretch, what you need.
Got it.
And a static stretch, I would like to mention that it's banned right now. It's banned.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'm not
Right.
going to say that this is wrong. It's banned. You're not supposed to do any kind of static stretches because it's kind of give you more harm to the muscle than doing good.
So it
Dynamic
leads to muscle
stretches,
breakdown, is what you're saying.
yeah, dynamic stretches is one which is advocated. And on top
Mm-hmm.
of you, if you do a ballistic stretch, which is a form of a dynamic stretch, better.
Mm-hmm. So is it
Also, one more.
applicable to all sort of people who are into different sports, including running, cricket, cycling, football, in your opinion? So
Yeah, yeah,
is
for everyone.
okay, got it. So another interesting question I've got
Also, there
is
was one. Sorry to interrupt. Also, there was one questions about static and dynamic stretches.
yes.
What you need to incorporate. When we did a research on a particular stretching, there was always a
Mm-hmm.
controversy regarding a static and the dynamic stretches. So
Yeah,
dynamic
absolutely.
stretches always wins over the static, and you will find numerous articles on Google stating that in the warm-up period you need to do a dynamic stretch, and when you are in the cool down phase, you need to do a static stretching. Don't do
Yeah.
static stretching because you're not going to achieve anything. What you need with the help of stretching is flexibility. Static
Right.
stretching is just holding there, not lengthening the tissue. So incorporate
Right.
dynamic stretching. There's no harm in incorporating dynamic stretches in both warm up as well as cool down.
To add to your point, personally, I'm a big fan of dynamic stretch.
Now, good.
So I have
You're
never
on the safe
done
side then.
static stretch in 10 years of my athletic experience.
Yeah.
Fortunately, only couple of occasions where I've got injured, which is not pretty
Great.
serious. Actually. So now, one interesting question that I have to you: when athletes get injured, so what kind of treatment is better? So do you recommend cold or heat treatment in terms which is better in your opinion?
Yeah, so it's
Or
divided
for
into
recovery as well, which is
yeah.
better?
So we divide it into a phase of rehabilitation. So
Mm-hmm.
if the injury is in the first 24 hours, okay,
Right,
you're always supposed to ice it because if you
right.
see any kind of inflammation, heat is
Mm-hmm.
one of the sign of inflammation. So
Okay,
if the structure inside is already heated up and you put a hot packs on it, it's going to get worse. Okay, so the
okay,
first 24 to 48 hours where the inflammation is there, always apply ice.
okay.
Also, when you apply ice, always apply ice with not just what the commercial ice packs which are available. You need
Right.
to insert your affected part in the complete ice immersion techniques. Like take if
Okay.
supposing if it is like an ankle injury, like immerse
Mm-hmm.
both your leg up to your calf in 70% ice, 30%
Mm-hmm.
water.
Okay.
That helps to reach to the deepest level. The
Okay.
second best technique to use ice is take a peas, Hanukkah peas, and put it in a fridge, the frozen peas,
Okay.
in a plastic, and then apply. It has a high tendency to keep that particular temperature for a long period of time, rather than using the commercial ice packs which are available.
I think that's a
Yeah.
good one actually.
So ice immersion once wins against everything. Also,
Okay.
when you apply ice, you should not be applying ice for more than 15 to 20 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. If
Okay.
you go to the chronic stage, that is post 48 hours,
Okay.
then you are supposed to apply heat. Now, advantage of heat is that it reaches to your deepest layer, that is up to muscle. And
Mm-hmm.
ice is only topical, that it can
Okay.
only reach up to your skin. So remember that.
Okay.
That's why it gives you like a more analgesic effects, like a
Okay.
pain relief, because it numbs
Mm-hmm.
that part. So if you
Got it.
have a chronic injuries for more than 3 months, 6 months, or years and years, always use heat, hot packs.
Got
Okay,
it.
that too in a moist form, not a dry heat. And if you
Okay.
have an injury up to a week, say,
Mm-hmm.
then you're supposed to only use ice packs.
Only ice pack.
Ice pack up to a week. But if the injury goes beyond a week, if the inflammation is there, then you are supposed to always substitute that with the heat. So up to a week, you can still go with the ice packs.
Ice pack.
Yeah,
So you're saying to convey the message to our viewers, first 48 hours you strongly recommend ice only.
strongly ice.
So anything
It
that
can be
goes beyond
prolonged.
48 hours, start
Yeah,
with heat therapy. But ice is still recommended using up to 1 week, right?
1 week. Yeah,
Right. I think that's a great message to everyone. Even for me, this was always area of concern. I had no clarity actually. So moving on to next topic of discussion, Dr. Swapnil, for you. How do you see nutrition for recovery for all the athletes during this lockdown? So maybe
yeah,
you can also give insight to our viewers since you work with all the professional players, including shooters and kabaddi players. Maybe you can pick some case and tell what athlete is doing, how they are keeping themselves recovered, what is their nutrition has been. So our viewers will be more interested in knowing
yeah.
your insight.
See, I personally give more weightage on the nutritional aspect because in India, somewhere this topic is like often neglected by the sports athlete. Everyone knows that we are deficient in some or the other form, but we are really
Absolutely.
not taking up nutrition aspect. The first thing it's and most expensive stuff to get a good nutrition. Okay, in a form of a protein powder, it would take approximately 20 to 30,000 per month to actually invest it on your body. Okay, taking into nutrition as the most important aspect. I personally give 60% weightage to this particular topic if you're training or also recovering as well. Okay, the
Okay.
first thing, vitamin D is the most important essential vitamins which we Indian lack. Okay,
Okay. Any
you
reason?
should. It's just
Any
like
reason you can
Indians are deficient. I think the good reason would be like not getting a good sunlight. Okay, but Indians are anyways like more down in the vitamin D levels. And the first thing what an athletes and we been doing with the teams abroad and in India is to always get their vitamin D levels checked. Okay.
Okay.
Once we check the levels, accordingly we prescribe them the supplementations. So
Got
if
it.
the levels are in single digits,
Mm-hmm.
then we ask them to go for the injection therapy, like supplementing
Injection.
them with the 6 lakh of parakitol injection over the period of 6 months.
6 months. Okay.
Yeah, now remember, out of 6 lakhs, not all 6 lakhs are going to get absorbed. So if you
Right.
again do
That's
a blood test, that will definitely going to show the higher
true.
level of vitamin D because they're injected from outside where your body is
Right.
not absorbing.
Right.
Meanwhile, in India, the practice I have seen is like they start supplementing or doctor prescribing them with 60,000 international unit. 60,000 is way too less. Out of the 60,000, merely something or the other gets absorbed. So the strong recommendation for the athletes, if the levels, so the normal level is 30 to 100. If the levels are
Mm-hmm.
in like a single digit, it's more susceptible to get you more aches and pains. It's more
Got it.
susceptible to have a fracture, okay, and
Right.
joint pains. And also, vitamin D plays a major important role in recovery as well as rehabilitation. Like two cases, take one athlete who has a good vitamin D level, he will be able to rehabilitate quick than an athlete who has a poor vitamin D level. Also, vitamin D level important for a sports athlete because it is a reason why we form the multiple knots in the muscle or multiple
Okay.
tightness which we see in the various different muscular group are mainly because of vitamin D deficiency. Now, many
Okay.
physiological processes there, like we'll discuss it later if you go live another session. The second more important, considering today's lockdown situation, is take all the essential fat-soluble vitamins like vitamin
Okay.
A, vitamin D, vitamin E, vitamin K. Also
Okay.
start supplementing vitamin B12, okay,
Mm-hmm.
and vitamin C. So vitamin C
Okay.
you can take a Limc, which is a chewable tablets, okay,
Okay.
and you can take vitamin E in a form of Evion 400,
Mm-hmm.
okay. The most essential um, part in the nutrition for a sports athlete to recover is the minerals, which
Right.
doctor usually don't prescribe.
Mm-hmm.
Minerals like zinc and
Okay.
magnesium, okay, with the combination of ZMA tablets and B6 and folic
Mm-hmm.
acid. These
Okay.
are the four essential things which will help you to recover faster because it slow down the metabolism process. And the
Right.
second most important thing it enhances is you get a very good sleep. So
Absolutely.
all the vitamins which we have listed earlier needs to be taken during the daytime. This essential zinc and magnesium ZMA tablets needs to be taken while you're about to sleep.
Right.
Okay, sleep
Sorry
as
to
we know is
interrupt
the
you here.
most.
I will add few points here. I'm a personal user of magnesium and zinc
Yeah,
because
yeah,
I can't sleep well in the
yeah,
night.
cool.
Right. So my metabolism process is slightly disrupted at this moment. There is bit of anxiety,
Yeah,
and since I do work out during this lockdown period, uh, magnesium is something I try and replenish along with zinc. So that is really helping me. The changes personally I'm seeing is there's a lot of calmness,
yeah, that's
so
true.
I can focus actually. So earlier, even if I work out or I don't work out, the focus is something that I used to lack. But magnesium, I feel that that has helped.
Yeah.
So over to you.
So if suppose someone who are having an intolerance to magnesium, say by
Okay.
any of the reason, Another technique to absorb magnesium is by doing an Epsom salt bath. Have
Okay.
you heard about it?
I haven't heard about it.
Yeah, so you get an Epsom salt which is readily available anywhere in the market. It's
Okay.
also richly enriched with magnesium. You can
That's
just
interesting.
take a lukewarm water in a
Mm-hmm.
bathtub if you have one, or just immerse it in take a Epsom salt and just you fill it with the water, with the lukewarm water in a bucket, and just
Mm-hmm.
immerse your leg or your entire body in the bathtub for
Right.
30 minutes. And that helps to again absorb magnesium through your skin. So that's another way where the athletes recover, either by taking an ice bath, or if they are intolerant to absorb that particular sensation of the ice, then they would find a substitute with the Epsom salt bath. Both
Okay.
helps in recovery.
Right.
But ice
I think
won't
that's a
give you
great
any
insight,
essential
actually.
minerals. Epsom salt will give
Mm-hmm.
you magnesium, which is important.
Right. Right. So the nutrition that you are recommending to all our viewers during this lockdown is, to summarize, it's proteins. You are recommending minerals. You are recommending vitamins, right? So that's a good
Yeah.
one, actually. What I want to know is, I know that athletes are really fit, right? So how prone are they to this particular coronavirus threat? Can keeping fit, staying fit, help them to fight
Yeah,
the
yeah.
disease?
The only way we can fight against this coronavirus is just first stay indoor, not expose yourself to the virus which is there outside. Uh,
Right.
Remain healthy. That's the reason why I emphasize this more on the nutritional aspect. By
Right.
having a good food and a good nutrition in the form of
Mm-hmm.
vitamins, minerals, and protein, amino acid. Also, one thing which is more important is the collagen. You'll see the
Collateral.
collagen is a main constituent of your entire connective tissue. So
Okay.
type 1 and type 3 collagen you should always take into consideration.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Got
these
it.
are the basic things where the only way we can fight against this corona is to stay healthy and
Mm-hmm.
get your immunity high.
I think that's really interesting. You're saying that athletes are really safe from the disease, but they
Yeah,
have to take
anyone can get.
precautions to stay safe.
Yes,
They can't
definitely.
ignore
Yeah,
the
yeah, you
danger
can't.
of the disease, right? So then the next, coming back to our main topic, recovery. Do you suggest any routine of recovery to all the athletes across different sport? You have any personal suggestion which you believe in strongly, which you
Uh,
endorse?
yeah, so recovery will differ according to the sports being played in India. So
Right.
if you are playing an individual sports like tennis or
Mm-hmm.
badminton or squash, you
Right.
have matches which goes even after few hours or
Mm-hmm.
after every day. In those phase, you're not supposed to do any kind of workout because your
Okay.
match is itself a workout. In
Okay.
those phases, recovery plays a most important phase where you can really start fresh for tomorrow's match. Okay, or
Mm-hmm.
match which is there for another 6 to 7 hours from now. So in
Okay.
those phases, the most important stuff is to first nurse the injury what you had with your earlier match.
Okay.
Go for a ice immersion technique. Do a good fascia stretch, which is a form of a ballistic dynamic stretching. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
and if you have an access to a physical therapist, then try to get as much as a physical assessment done. Comment
Okay.
some medications which would help you in getting a pain relief so that you prepare with the next match. Try
Okay.
to support your joints and ligaments by using various different types of tapes available. Use a compression garments if the sport is allowing you to, because that helps you to remove all the toxic substances in the body and the lactic acid which must have been deposited because of the match you played
Okay.
earlier. So compression garments, if the sports allows, you can wear them like a bodysuit,
Mm-hmm.
which is more
Okay.
essential. And also nutrition form during the matches, it should always be a simple carbohydrates which should give you more energy to for your next match. But
Okay.
if you have a sports like football, which is
Mm-hmm.
played over the week times, okay, so one
Right.
match is on Monday, the next match would be on Monday, you have enough time for recovery.
Okay.
In those cases, immediately after you finished your match, you need to have a good 20 to 30 minutes of cool down session.
Okay.
Immediately go for the ice bath. Okay,
Okay.
that will take care about small minor aches and pain which you must have succumbed during playing the match. Then go for a good ballistic stretching, and over the period
Mhm.
of time you have some good devices like recovery
Right.
boots, okay,
Right.
where you can immerse the leg inside the vacuum compression, and that can get you away with the lactic acids away from the member.
Got
Two
it.
things in physical therapy helps in proper recovery is if you heard about cupping.
Cupping.
Cupping, the Michael Phelps, which
So this was pretty popular when Michael Phelps won
yeah,
10
the
gold
reason
medals.
why they choose cupping because he had a match every other day. If
Okay.
you go for traditional massages, it
Mm-hmm.
leaves you sore the next day.
Okay.
Cupping and massages are kind of a compression. You put pressure on the body. However,
Okay.
cupping is totally opposite. Cupping is a form of a decompression. So it elevates your skin and does not leave
Okay.
you sore. Also, it increases the most important substance in the body, that is a hemoglobin,
Okay.
which increases your oxygen carrying capacity. And what you need for your next match is you internally produce that hemoglobin inside the body.
I think that's great insight. So maybe what I will do is we have
Yeah.
Shika Tandon. She was also Olympian. She is live on this particular session. She has a question for you. So the
Yeah.
question is benefit of multivitamin given the recommendation to have some in the day or night. What's your thought on this?
Multivitamins.
Yeah. So do you recommend
Yeah.
multivitamin
So
for athletes? Can it be had during the day or night? What do you recommend?
multivitamins always should be post your breakfast.
Okay.
So three vitamins, as I mentioned, will be your multivitamins. You can either take a Fast&Up or you can go for a tablet A to Z, which is good in having all the essential multivitamins. Then daily you're supposed to take a vitamin E, vitamin C, and vitamin D. So E, C, D, and your multivitamins. And at night, ZMA. That's
Right.
it. That's the best you require. If you're working out, post workout, you're supposed to take branch chain amino acids or protein. Now,
Right.
BCAA you can either take pre or post. Okay,
Right.
protein has to be essentially gone with a post workout and has to be
Got it.
taken not with the milk but with the water so that it absorbs faster. And the
Faster
one thing which
absorption is through water, is what you're saying.
yeah, okay,
Right.
and second best, which most of the people ignore, is the collagen post
Right.
workout.
Okay.
That to type 1 and type 3. These are
Mm-hmm.
the essential ones.
Right. I think that's a great one, Dr. Swapnil. So I have a question from my end. This is for my personal understanding. So I use BCAA not just post-workout or during
Yeah,
workout product. I use it pre-workout with an
pre-workout, yeah.
assumption of it will prevent me from breaking down my muscle while performing the activity. How do you recommend to your players? So because you work with kabaddi players and
We
Olympians,
give,
right? How do you
yeah.
recommend BCAA and at what interval do they take? How do you take it? How do they take it?
Uh, so, Kabaddi is a very strenuous sport. We had a training like 2 times in a day, which is way too
Mm-hmm.
rigorous. We
Right.
also
It's
tried
more of
to,
strength and power, right?
we also tried to make our coaches understand about not to overload the athletes with too much of training. But
Right.
somehow the psychology is of coaches is like जितना आप train करोगे उतना better perform करोगे, which somewhere in the Indian um, training situation should change.
Absolutely.
In such circumstances, in Kabaddi, we used to give them a good BCAA, as you mentioned, pre as well as post.
Mm-hmm.
During the match day, we used to give them 1 hour before the
Mm-hmm.
match, the branch in
Okay.
amino acids. Because if you know, if you do any kind of strenuous workout or the muscles are going to break down, and you need that essential dose of protein, and amino
Right.
acids are the building blocks of protein. So if you are it's really working hard, you need to have somewhere around 1.5 to 2 grams per body weight of your, and if you have a sedentary lifestyle, which is right now, with the minimal activity, you're supposed to have 0.8 to 1
Right.
grams of protein of your body weight. So
Okay.
accordingly, you need to, but make sure that we don't need to give supplementation to everyone. Only if the player
Okay.
is having match, that only then we have to really. Otherwise, too much of protein is also harmful for the body. You need to utilize that protein well.
I agree.
And the only way to utilize protein is by doing a serious bout of strenuous exercises.
Right. I'm also a firm believer body also is capable of producing enough protein by itself, amino
Yeah,
acid basically.
yeah,
But I like the idea that you gave amino acid loading before the game is also pretty
before the game.
important. That
Yeah.
prevents them from
Because see,
breaking down. That's
yeah,
interesting.
you don't get amino acids from any of the source naturally. You have
True.
to supplement it from outside. So it's more
Right.
important that you keep your, because protein constitutes most of your body composition. So that's
Right.
what.
Right. So before we wind up this question, do you have any message to our audience? A special message from your end?
Yeah. Wait, I've just listed down something so that I don't miss it out. First of all, as you know, the recovery is not that well practiced in India. So the first takeaway message is start reading more on the recovery and its method, and try to start implementing it into your regular practice. The best way to start doing it is to start from tomorrow itself, where you have a time by your side and then you can utilize it more to read more on this. And don't overtrain your body. Understand your body first, know its limitation. Even though your trainer is forcing you to do an extra repetitions or extra kind of a workout, understand your body, limit where your body can go up to, and have a good amount of rest. Also
Okay.
important is to go for regular massages. That really helps quite a lot in recovering. um,
When you
yeah,
say massage, is it
stay
sports
healthy.
massage or
Sports
general
massage.
sports
No,
massage?
sports massage. That will
Okay.
help you in releasing the
The deep
toxicity which
tissue.
has been deep tissue. Yeah. It would hurt you a little bit, but then you have to keep doing it every 15 days if you're really working hard to. If you're
Okay.
into a moderate type of exercises, then it is recommended that you take once in a week a good sports massage, or the fascia release technique, which is a new thing which has come
Okay.
up, where you use a stainless steel instrument to drain all the circulatory system out.
Sure.
Yeah. So stay healthy, stay fit, focus more on the nutrition, do some of the other kinds of activities, because you saw how fitness parameters fall down over the period of 2 weeks. And since we already crossed 2 weeks, so we are in a very high zone of getting re-injured again. And always on the regular basis, consult a physical therapist, your nutritionist, your chiropractor, to get your body aligned. Even if you don't have any aches and pains, it's always better that you take care of your body from now onwards because of this pandemic stuff.
Right. I think that's a great message, Dr. Swapnil.
Yeah.
Personally, today I went for my deep tissue. So I've been
Oh,
running all this while.
you have been
So
accessible to that. I've been searching
yeah.
for a sports massage since last many weeks. I'm not getting
So
it.
I took a personal appointment with
Oh,
known doctor in
great.
close proximity in a safer area. So I took a personal sports massage
Mona is
myself because
asking
I've
how
been
many.
running 60, 70 kilometer a week since this lockdown is, because the government is promoting people should continue to cycle, continue to run, keep
Yeah.
themselves fit. Only then they can fight this disease better. But
Mona is
while I've
asking.
been doing,
Mona is asking one question, like how many hours should one sleep? Okay, we
yeah,
have
that's a great question.
yeah.
Let's take that.
So here is the data from the Sleep Foundation in United States,
Mhm.
and for a athlete in an age group of 12 to 16, okay, 9
12
to
to
10
16
hours
young
of,
athletes you're talking about.
yeah, young athlete, 9 to 10 hours of sleep is important, and for an adult athlete 7 to 8 hours is compulsory. And
Compulsory.
as you age, the more you sleep, the better it is. Now,
I
this is not my
agree.
personal opinion. This is like a statistic taken from the
Statistics
Sleep
says that.
Foundation. Yeah.
My personal opinion is when I don't sleep, I can't work out next day.
Work.
Trust
Yeah,
me.
yeah.
My heart rate shoots up, body acts weird, so I just can't focus on that particular workout. So I do agree on your point.
Yeah.
So another user, he had asked this question sometime back, maybe before we wind up and hang up. I would like to take that question because it is interesting, your area of specialization. He has asked about hydrotherapy. Your comments on that?
Hydrotherapy is good, but mostly hydrotherapy has been used for the early phase of rehabilitation. Remember,
Okay.
I told you about the police protocol, the protection, optimum loading. That optimum loading needs to be done in hydrotherapy sessions.
Okay.
Yeah. But since the resources are too limited in India, we don't have too many of hydrotherapy pools across.
Okay, so we lack that
We
infrastructure,
lack
is
that,
it?
yeah, definitely.
Okay.
So, but
I really
it's a
hope
very,
it changes here in India, right?
yeah, we have one center, Aquacentric in Andheri, in Bombay, and then you will find it in multiple hospitals. Okay, but
Right.
it's a way good in a your early phase of rehabilitation, where you really needs to put overloading on the connective tissue so that it doesn't lose its fitness parameters.
Right. So is there something future do you see in terms of recovery, like hydrotherapy?
There's,
Back then it was
yeah.
considered as future. Is anything in the pipeline which can be considered as future in your opinion?
Have you heard about float mechanism?
No. I've
Okay,
heard floating mechanism in Dead Sea where people say you float on the Dead Sea, it helps in absorbing minerals. So maybe
yeah,
a magnesium might help.
it's a very new thing which has come up, which is a floating technique. We have it in Bandra in Mumbai, and
Okay.
where it's more about relieving your psychological stress and anxiety and calm down your entire physiological system, not just targeting onto one system but entirely you calm down. So you float on a water with Epsom salt in it in a dark
Mhm.
room, so only you and your body is communicating with each other, and that's it.
Okay.
So you can also research more on the floating techniques.
Great. So I am really looking forward to that once I travel to Mumbai.
And there is one question about foam rolling.
Right. Yeah, I
Yeah,
think that question came a couple of times. Maybe you should take it
yeah,
up.
foam rolling. If you have a good knowledge
Mm-hmm.
about how to palpate the muscle, whether it is too stiff or too fragile to break, foam rolling is strictly not advisable from my side. The reason why, because as an athlete, when you use foam rolling, you're not aware about how tender or how um, tight that particular spot is, and you often kind of put extra pressure to get it released. What
Right.
damage is done is like it tears up your connective tissue, which is bad.
Okay.
Psychologically, you feel it released, but so when we practice in UK, we really don't incorporate foam rolling. We consider
So
it
what
to
do
be
you
really
recommend then?
just a stretching.
Alternative to foam. Just
Yeah, just a
stretchers.
stretching. Yeah, or just take
Just a
a
static.
small. Yeah, yeah. But
Okay.
we, even if athletes want to do foam rolling, don't go
Mm-hmm.
too deep. Don't use
Okay.
that spiky, pokey one. If it is a joint and you have a cartilage degeneration, then you need to support it with the chondroitin sulfate and glucosamine tablets.
Okay.
If it is just bones and muscle,
Yeah. Minute session. So just a minute. Maybe we can say bye to Dr. Swapnil. Yeah.
Yeah, hi. I think there was
I
some
think there is
interruption.
45 minutes restrictions on live
Oh,
session now.
is it? We went on
I
to
didn't know
45
that.
minutes?
I didn't know that. So
Yeah, we thought
because
of
the
having a
discussion was so
20-minute session.
interesting, we just got carried away. Actually,
Yeah.
I
Cool.
think every insight, whatever you gave, personally, I could relate it.
Yeah.
I'm sure each one of our viewers also can relate it. That was
Yeah.
pretty interesting. Anything at last from your side?
I think I already mentioned. Stay
Yeah,
healthy, stay fit, stay home, and
right.
be good. Be hygienic. Not just even after the corona ends up, but throughout your life, try to be a good hygienic individual and
I agree.
have a social distancing. Yeah, that's
Right. I think we all are going through tough time. We
yeah.
shall come back from this very strongly, right? So let us all stay safe. Thank you
Yeah.
everyone for joining this session.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Swapnil. It was
Yeah, I
pretty
hope you
interesting
liked it.
interacting with you. So we are looking forward to keeping in touch with you in future as well.
Yeah.
Thank you guys. Thanks. Bye-bye.